I'd love for you to speak to nervous system wiring, how that, leads to someone's anxiety and how we can regain our sovereignty and how we rewire our nervous system to be adults, making responsible decisions and taking accountability and not acting from this kind of pattern or programming that we received as a child.
Yes, everything, yes. So it is foundational. We need to create that safety in the body for us to be able to step into our power and leverage that power for good. Otherwise, we're acting from unconscious wounds, from a place of scarcity and fear, and that can really distort what we do with our power. So when I think about nervous system healing, on the one hand, I do it in a very non-nervous system way. I really do it through stable blood sugar and healthy fats and juicing up our micronutrient status and protecting good sleep and building in little pockets of movement and building in little pockets of dancing and music. And I'm sort of thinking very much in the physical body that our nervous system, it is still a reflection of, does our body have its needs met? And if we're in a micronutrient deficiency or sleep deprivation or a hangover, our nervous system is basically giving us a signal of not enough, not enough. And it's not wrong, it's purposeful. We just haven't gotten the memo and addressed it yet. But then I also think about on the level of trauma, I always talk about trauma as unresolved trauma. And I use that term really intentionally because I believe that there's so many good practices at this point for helping the limbic system, the nervous system, understand that was then, this is now. How do we help rewire so that our body can know the threat has passed, it's once again safe to be in our body? Because so much of trauma, it's our body understandably thinking, above all else, I need to keep myself safe, which often means the body has got its foot stuck on the accelerator in the nervous system, in a state of hyperarousal, easily startled. Everything is perceived as a threat, and that no longer serves us. So it was once adaptive, and then it becomes maladaptive. So treatments like EMDR, which stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, or reprogramming, that's that's a beautiful practice, somatic experiencing therapy. So I always want someone with trauma to address it in some of these trauma-focused therapies. But then the last thing here is that we live in an emotion-phobic culture. And I think many of us are walking around with uncried tears and unfelt grief. And I think that is informing the baseline of where our nervous system sits. I think of it like a full bladder. It's like there's this feeling of urgency, and it's shaping our mood and how we interact with each other. And so I like to say this a lot. We come by it honestly. This is cultural messaging we've had, but once again, we got it wrong. Mm-hmm. And so I think we're due for a cultural rebranding around crying. Like crying, the minute we cry, we apologize. We're like, I'm sorry. And then we try to suck it back in the way you would pinch in a sneeze, make it as brief and as quick as possible. We think that's the sign of strong, good character. But that's completely backwards. And the fact that crying is a diagnostic criteria when I'm looking at diagnosing pathologic grief or depression, this is wild, because crying was never actually the burden, the problem, the pathology. Crying is the medicine. It is the wisdom of our body saying you need a release. And what's so interesting about tears is that a component of our stress response, it's called ACTH, stands for adrenocorticotropic hormone. It comes out in our tears. Mm-hmm. And amazingly, it only comes out in emotional tears. So if you're cutting an onion, there's no ACTH in those tears. So this really is our body saying, we need to disburden the body of some stress right now. And we need to cry more. I think we need to cry bigger, longer. It needs to be messier. It needs to be blubbier. I think there are false peaks with crying where you get to a point and you think, okay, I can catch my breath. I'm good. I'm done crying. I can stop being a burden on the people around me. But that's actually an opportunity to catch a wave back into the cry. And I think that I learned this with psychedelic medicine, but I feel like I learned how to cry better in those settings where it's like I thought I knew how to cry, and then I learned how to push it to 11. And when you get to a really deep process with crying where it feels like time stops and it's like you're frozen in a grimace and you're just really connecting with an almost exquisite feeling of sadness and grief, that I think is a proper release, and most of us are overdue for that.
Oh
And
my
then
gosh.
grief in general, I think we have to grieve loss, but I think we have to grieve so many things. Job changes, we have to grieve identity changes, we have to grieve divorce, but we have to grieve marriage too. We have to grieve pregnancy loss and also the birth of a child. We need to grieve constantly. It's all change, and we don't pause and have space and permission to mourn what was lost. It's a two things can be true moment where this is the right thing to do, it's the right change, or this is a beautiful blessing in my life. And I mourn the loss of what was before. And so I think that that informs our nervous system too, is all these uncried tears and all this unfelt grief.
It's so true. And I literally have said in recent podcasts, and I think the one that released today was a solo episode, and I was just like, I'm not a good crier. Like I have to, but then the minute, like I went to do equine therapy, and I know every time before I do a big transformational thing, any sort of therapy, or like the healing starts beforehand, and my body knows, and there's resistance from my ego because it's scared of change and growth. And then my body is like, so on the way to equine therapy, I started feeling grief bubbling up. I was like, okay, this is interesting. I guess this is what we're moving today. And I needed those horses. I needed those big hearts and that field to trigger it. And I'm like, but I need to, and even yesterday with this like hormonal overload where I was like, what is happening? I played a tennis match. I got so freaking angry in the tennis match because I was just in this hormonal cascade that was not normal or natural, but hopefully healing. And then I came home and I just like started crying, but I wanted to ride that second wave, and I couldn't. So I had the tears come. I knew there were emotional tears. I knew that it was a hormonal release. But I just was like, how do I get this out? And I've gone through massive things in the last 2 years, like grieving the change of my marriage and leaving that. And that was like, I grieved for 6 months, and I'm still grieving, I'm sure. And then we lost our house in the fire, and grieving the loss of that community and this like collective trauma that nobody really has language or, history of processing or understanding. So what I'm saying is everything you're saying is absolutely right. I think that we have lost, which I love, this whole concept of bringing the witch back. Because the women and these medicine women of old cultures, traditional cultures, they're the ones that kept the ritual. They're the ones that were in tune with the cycles of nature to help guide people through those processes.
And the witches historically were those elders and those connector women in the community. But I guess part of what I even want to convey with my book is that I think we're all witches. Yes. Some of us a little more tapped into it, but it's there for the taking for all of us. And I just want women to know that about themselves and embrace it, to basically not feel shame, not feel the need to apologize, and not limit themselves. For me, this became most urgent when I lost my parents. And it was with my first loss, when I lost my mom. It was a spiritual question of, is loss absolute? Is she gone forever? Or does she continue to exist in some form? At the beginning, having been brought up in this kind of secular Judaism, atheism was what was cool and respectable, and we worshipped at the altar of science. Like, that was my religion growing up. So I was indoctrinated with the idea of course loss is absolute. Of course the end is the end. She does not continue to exist. But when I was 6 months pregnant, my mom passed away suddenly. That was just too intolerable for me in that moment. And in that watery, liminal, griefy, pregnant state, I was like, what if I just choose to believe that she exists on some level, in some form, to make this kind of soften the ache of grief and kind of create a little bridge for me? So I chose it at first. But then what felt like uncanny, impossible moments of connection to her spirit were coming through frequently. And at this point, now I'm 10 years out from it, it's not a choice anymore. It's a knowing. It's how I live my life. It has shaped everything. And it's brought me meaning and guidance and transcendence and an ongoing connection with the people that I've lost. And I just wish that for anyone. And I don't mean to impose a spiritual worldview. Like, if that's truly not your truth, cool, because I don't pretend to know what is the truth. None of us really knows. This has ended up being my truth, and it's been helpful. And so I just want to catch anyone who's like, I have a patient who connects to the spirit of her father who's passed away, but she finds herself, she doubts herself. She basically says, this is foolish, this is silly, of course he's not there. And I kind of just want to intervene at that point and be like, or maybe, is it hurting anybody? Is it bringing you comfort? Like, we could stay with this and reap the benefits of that ongoing connection. And will we ever know if it's real? No, doesn't matter. And so that's where I want us all to know that we're witches, and I don't want anybody to miss the magic that might be just within reach in their lives. Like, that's what I want people to not miss out on.